Right now, today in August, you are one wrong move away from killing a plant that should have outlived your mortgage. Not next year, not eventually, this month. Go look at your lavender. If it's an English variety, the flowers already faded weeks ago, gone from deep purple to a tired, dusty grey. If it's one of the bigger types, a grosso or a phenomenal or a Provence, it might still be holding colour right now or just starting to turn. It doesn't matter which one you have. There's one job sitting in front of you this month, and it doesn't just shape this season. It decides whether that plant is still alive and blooming 15 years from now, or whether it's a dead, split-open stump by year 6. There is no middle outcome here, one or the other. And here's the part almost nobody says out loud. Most gardeners get this completely wrong, and they don't get it a little wrong. They get it catastrophically wrong in two totally opposite directions, and both directions end the exact same way, in a dead plant. If you want the honest version of this before you touch a single blade, subscribe right now, because I'm about to show you both ways people destroy this plant without ever realizing it, and then the 1 5-word rule that saves it. 2 ways to kill a healthy lavender. Group 1 is the avoider. Their lavender looks fine, or fine enough, so they leave it alone. Cutting into a plant that still has some green and some flowers on it feels like vandalism, so they don't. The problem is that every single year this plant is left alone, it quietly puts on a little more bare wood at the base. The green retreats upward. The stems get longer and leggier, flowering only right at the tips, until eventually the whole thing splits open in the middle with a hollow, ugly gap where the plant used to be. Some growers call this the chicken leg look, and once a lavender gets there, it's usually finished within about 6 years. Group 2 is the overcorrector. They see the same leggy, tired-looking plant and decide to be decisive about it. They get the shears out and cut it back hard, the same way they'd cut back a rose or a butterfly bush or almost any other shrub in the garden, and they kill it, not slowly. Outright. Here's why. Lavender does not reliably grow back from old wood. Cut into that bare, hardened brown stem and nothing comes back from that point, not next month, not next spring, not ever. The instinct that saves almost every other plant in your garden, the idea that a hard cut just triggers a strong comeback, is the exact instinct that leaves you with a dead stick here. So there's one rule, 5 words long, that keeps you out of both of those failures. I'll give it to you in just a moment. But to actually understand why it works, and to be able to apply it without memorizing a script, you first need to understand what a lavender plant actually is. What lavender actually is. Here's the fact that changes everything about how you think of this plant. Lavender isn't really a perennial, not in the way a coneflower or a daylily is. And it isn't a true shrub either, not the way a rose or a hydrangea is. Botanists have a specific word for it. It's a subshrub, sometimes called a semi-shrub, and that basically means it's 2 different plants stacked directly on top of each other. The top portion is soft, green, flexible growth. This year's new shoots, this year's leaves, this year's flower spikes. That part behaves like a perennial. It's alive, it flexes, it grows back readily. The bottom portion is wood, brown hard, and it gets a little bit taller every single year as the stem ages and hardens. That process is called lignification, and here's the detail that decides everything else in this video, that brown wood is dead ground. As the stem hardens and turns to timber, the tiny latent buds that could have grown new shoots simply die off. There's nothing left in there to regrow from. Cut into it and you get a bare stick permanently. Every other shrub in your garden forgives you for a hard cut. A hydrangea, a rose, a butterfly bush, cut any of them back into old wood and they shrug it off and push new growth anyway. Lavender is the exception. So your entire job, every single time you touch this plant with a pair of shears, is finding exactly where the green stops and the brown starts and staying above that line. It helps to picture the plant in 3 rough zones. The top third is this season's soft green growth and the flower spikes themselves. That's completely fair game, safe to remove entirely. The middle third is older leafy green growth, still safe to cut into, as long as you leave some leafy nodes behind on the stem. The bottom third is the heavily lignified base, and that zone doesn't get touched ever. That's the whole rule, and here it is in 5 words. Cut into the green, never the brown. Everything else in this video is just detail hanging off that one sentence. Before we go further, do me a favor and drop a comment telling me 2 things. What type of lavender you're working with, English, French, Spanish, or one of the big lavandins like grosso or phenomenal, and what growing zone you're in. Both of those change your exact timing, and I'll circle back to why in a minute. Why August is your window? Here's the honest answer about timing, and it isn't really a date on the calendar. It's an event. You prune right after the main flush of flowers fades, whatever month that happens to land in for your particular type. For English lavender, that main flush usually hits back in late June and early July. So if you're growing an English variety and you haven't done this yet, August isn't your early window, it's already a somewhat late one and worth getting to soon rather than later. The big lavandins run differently. Grosso Provace phenomenal, these bloom later and for longer, often stretching from July into September. So if that's what's in your garden right now in August, is very likely exactly your moment. Spanish lavender already had its show back in spring, so if that's what you've got, this particular job isn't on your plate this month at all. There's a simple memory aid a lot of growers use for the timing and the amount together, sometimes called the 8-8-8 approach. Do the main prune around the 8th day of the 8th month, right after flowering finishes. Remove about 8 inches of growth, which works out to roughly a third of the plant's overall height, and cut back to somewhere around the 8th set of leaves, leaving a solid cushion of active green growth below your cut. Think of that as a helpful memory hook rather than strict law. The real trigger is always right after the flowers fade, not a specific day circled on a calendar. Now here's the part that people miss entirely, and it's why the window closes as well as opens. When you cut lavender, you're not just tidying it up, you're triggering it. The plant responds by pushing out fresh, tender new growth, and that new growth needs several weeks of decent weather to mature and toughen up before real cold arrives. Cut too late in the season, and you send a plant covered in soft new shoots straight into a frost, and the cold burns that growth off and weakens the whole plant heading into winter. So here's your actual deadline, and you can calculate it yourself. Look up your average first frost date and count back 6 weeks from it. Don't prune later than that point. If you're somewhere with a genuinely short summer and an early frost, the honest answer for you this month might be the opposite of everything else in this video. Don't do a full structural prune right now. Just deadhead the spent flower stems and save the real annual trim for late winter or very early spring instead. Forcing tender new growth you can't harden off before frost is worse than simply waiting. What happens if you skip this? If you just skip this job entirely, which plenty of people do, here's what happens, and it's not dramatic, which is exactly why it sneaks up on people. Every year, a little more of the bottom of the plant turns to bare wood. The green retreats a bit further upward. The stems get longer and lankier, flowering only right at the tips, and eventually the whole thing sprawls outward and splits open, leaving a hollow gap right where the center of the plant used to be. Here's what that costs you in plain numbers. Pruned properly, English lavender and the big lavandins can live 15 to 20 years. Left alone, they're typically finished by around year 6. One job done once a year, and that's the entire difference between those two outcomes. Before we get into exactly where to cut and how much to take, if any of this is new information to you, go ahead and subscribe, because what comes next is the part that decides whether your lavender gets another 15 years or gets lost in one overconfident afternoon. And drop a comment telling me where you're gardening from. Your climate genuinely changes when your personal deadline lands, so that's useful information for both of us. How to actually do the cut. Timing within the day matters more than people expect, and it comes down to simple chemistry. Cut in the morning once the dew has dried but before the sun gets properly hot, and you catch the plant at peak total oil volume, rich in a compound called linalool, which gives that clean, sharp, almost antiseptic scent that's ideal if you're drying flowers or making anything medicinal. Cut in the early afternoon during peak heat instead, and the plant has shifted its chemistry toward a compound called linalool acetate, giving a sweeter, fruitier, more complex fragrance that's better suited to perfumery or culinary use. You'll lose a little total oil volume cutting in the heat of the day, but what's left is more concentrated in that direction. More important than the hour, though, is the growth stage. Cut when about a third to half of the individual buds on each flower spike have opened, not once the plant is in full, glorious bloom. Full bloom is already past its peak for fragrance and oil content. For the actual technique, take a handful of stems at once in one hand rather than working one stem at a time. Follow them down past the flowers, into the leafy green growth until you find a leaf node, one of those small junctions where leaves or side shoots come off the stem. Cut just above that node, at a slight angle so water sheds off the cut rather than sitting on it. Here's the reward for cutting there specifically. The side shoots released by that cut will often grow into new stems of their own, which means a healthy, well-timed prune frequently earns you a second, lighter flush of flowers about 6 to 8 weeks later. For how much to remove, take roughly a third of the plant overall. On the big, long-stemmed lavandins, you can take up to about half, since they carry so much extra stem length. Either way, you're aiming to cut about 2 inches above wherever the wood actually begins. There's a more assertive method some specialist growers use specifically on established English lavender. Looking closely at the brown stems near the base, you can sometimes spot tiny blue-gray buds just above the soil line. Cutting back hard to around 9 inches, just above those visible buds, forces the plant into fresh growth within days, since it exposes those dormant buds directly to sunlight. This harder approach is genuinely restricted to English lavender specifically. French lavender, the toothed leaf type known as Lavandula dentata, does not tolerate this at all and needs a much gentler hand. The same goes for Spanish types and the big hybrid lavandins. On those, sometimes the safest move is simply cutting back to the mound of foliage sitting just below the spent flower stems and stopping there. As you cut, shape the whole plant toward a rounded, compact dome rather than a flat hedge top. That domed shape sheds rain and snow properly, instead of letting moisture collect and sit in the center, which is exactly where rot starts in a dense woody crown. When you're finished, look at the plant. It should still read as a green cushion overall. If you can see bare brown sticks poking out anywhere, you took too much and those particular sticks aren't coming back. Use sharp bypass pruners for this job, the kind with blades that pass each other like scissors, not the crushing kind and not a pair of kitchen scissors. And wipe the blades down with alcohol between plants, since a dirty blade can carry disease straight into every fresh cut you make. One last thing worth doing here. Leave a few flower spikes standing when you're done, not for the plant's sake, but for the bees. Lavender is one of the strongest nectar sources in the late summer garden, and they're actively working it right now. Take your harvest, but leave them their share. The other August risk, water. Pruning isn't the only thing that goes wrong with lavender in August. The other major risk is watering, and it usually comes from a good instinct applied at the wrong moment. In intense midday heat, lavender can droop a little, even when the soil underneath is perfectly adequate. That drooping is often just the plant's normal defense against losing too much water through its leaves during the hottest part of the day. The trouble starts when a gardener sees that droop, assumes thirst, and waters in response. Here's what actually happens underground when that becomes a pattern. Healthy lavender roots are pale, firm, almost cream-colored. When soil stays consistently wet, oxygen gets pushed out of the spaces between soil particles, and the roots start to suffocate and decay, turning dark and soft. As those damaged roots lose their ability to move water up into the plant, the foliage above ground starts to wilt and yellow, which looks exactly like thirst. So the well-meaning gardener waters again, and the cycle accelerates until the plant is gone. The fix is watering deep and infrequent rather than often and shallow. A slow, deep soak that reaches down around 2 feet encourages the roots to grow deep and resilient. Frequent light watering instead keeps the roots sitting near the surface, right where summer heat can scorch them. 2 more quick notes that matter this month specifically. Skip the fertilizer entirely in August. Nitrogen in particular pushes soft, floppy leafy growth at the direct expense of flowers and can cut your bloom count by close to 40% in a bad case. And keep organic mulch, the bark and wood chip kind, pulled well back from the crown of the plant. That kind of mulch traps moisture right where lavender genuinely cannot tolerate it. If you want to mulch around the base at all, use gravel or grit instead, which keeps the crown dry. A quick diagnostic if something looks off. A couple of things worth knowing how to tell apart, since they can look similar at first glance. If the leaves are yellowing starting from the bottom of the plant and whole branches are drooping, and when you check the roots they're dark, soft and mushy, that's root rot from overwatering, and the fix is to stop watering immediately and improve drainage. If instead the foliage just looks a little dull and slightly droopy during a genuine heat wave, but the roots underneath are still firm and pale, that's ordinary heat stress, not a real problem, and it resolves with a proper deep soak rather than daily light watering. If you spot small white, frothy spittle sitting on the stems, don't panic. That's just froghopper nymphs, completely harmless, and a gentle spray of water knocks it right off, no pesticide needed. And if you see a grey-white powdery coating developing on the leaves in a densely planted area, that's usually powdery mildew from poor airflow, solved by thinning nearby plants a little and watering only at the base rather than overhead. Is it already too late for yours? Maybe your lavender is already past the point of a simple prune. Bare knuckles at the base, long lanky stems, maybe already split open with a gap in the middle. Can that be fixed? Honestly, sometimes partially and sometimes no. Here's how to actually tell. Get down close and look carefully at the woody stems themselves, hunting specifically for green. Not green leaves way up at the top, but tiny new green shoots pushing directly out of the old wood. If you find that there's still life in that particular stem to work with. If a woody stem is completely bare, brown and leafless with absolutely no sign of any sprouting anywhere along it, that stem is finished. There's a second quick test too. Bend a stem gently. If it's brittle and snaps cleanly, it's dead. If it bends and shows green underneath the bark, it's still viable. If you do find some green life in the wood, here's the honest rescue method, and it takes real patience. You don't fix a woody lavender in one afternoon. You fix it gradually over 2 or 3 years. Work one branch at a time, taking each one back by about a third, never cutting into the brown, and always leaving green growth on every branch you touch. Then repeat that same process again next year and the year after. Slowly, the plant rebuilds itself into a proper mound instead of a sprawl. What you must not do, and this is the tempting mistake almost everyone reaches for, is looking at that ugly, woody mess and deciding to be decisive about it, cutting the whole thing back hard all at once to renovate it. That isn't a renovation, that's an execution. And here's the honest verdict, the part that might disappoint some of you, but I'd rather tell you the truth than sell you false hope. If your lavender is heavily woody, mostly bare and already split open in the middle, pruning is not going to give you back the plant it used to be. It might buy a few more years, but it won't resurrect it. At a certain point, the right answer, the one nobody really wants to hear, is to take a few healthy cuttings from it, root them, and start fresh with young plants instead. Because here's the truth nobody says out loud. Even done perfectly, lavender has a natural lifespan. English and lavandin types, pruned correctly every year, give you 15 to 20 good years. French and Spanish types are shorter lived, more like 5 to 7 years. This was never really a plant you inherit and keep forever. It's a plant you keep replacing on a cycle, and good pruning is simply how far you stretch each individual plant along that cycle. Think of one specific person you know whose lavender has already gone bare-knuckled and woody at the base, or one who's about to confidently take a pair of shears to a perfectly healthy plant. Send them this video. It's a short watch that can genuinely save a 15-year plant. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, since your local climate is the one variable that changes every single date I've given you in this video. Bringing it all together. Here's the entire video compressed into a few sentences, in case you need the fast version. The job happens right after your particular lavender's main flush of flowers fades, whatever month that lands in for your type. Cut in the morning if you want the clean, sharp scent for drying, or in early afternoon if you're after the sweeter, richer fragrance. Either way, once about a third to half of the buds on each spike are open. Take roughly a third of the plant off, up to half on the big lavandins, cutting about 2 inches above wherever the wood begins, shaping the whole thing toward a rounded dome as you go. When you're done, it should still look like a solid green cushion. If bare brown sticks are visible anywhere, you went too far and those particular stems won't come back. Your absolute deadline is 6 weeks before your average first frost date. If you garden somewhere with a short summer, deadhead only this month and save the structural cut for late winter instead. And through the rest of August, water deep and rarely rather than shallow and often. Skip the fertilizer and keep mulch away from the crown. A lavender isn't really a plant you own for life. It's a plant you keep, one honest cut at a time, for as many of its 15 or 20 good years as you can earn from it. Cut into the green, never the brown. Go find that line on your own plant